So there's a new Blake Lively 50 Shades of Grey kind of movie out called It Ends With Us, which has a really weird element to it that I can't really talk about on YouTube because it's not nice. The interviews and the stuff around this movie, specifically Blake Lively keeps doing weird interviews. And then I came across this sort of in the rabbit hole, which is Kjersti Flaa, who's a Norwegian celebrity interviewer based out of LA. I'm sure I pronounced her name wrong. She posted this on her YouTube channel, the Blake Lively interview that made me want to quit my job. So credit to whoever edited it. 10 out of 10 comedic timing. It was so hilarious. Context, they're in a hotel room, I'm pretty sure, that's been dressed for Cafe Society, which is a Woody Allen film that Blake Lively and Parker Posey star in. So this was a few years ago. It's marketing material. It's the same thing as when a celebrity goes on to late night shows and sits on the couch and plays like a 30-second clip of their movie and everybody applauds. It's the same stuff. It's literally just marketing. It's not creative. It's just, hey, look, it's a celebrity, and hey, look, the celebrity's in this movie. So this interview format, this kind of stuff, I find to be just vapid and dated and old and boring. And the late night aspect of it, which is the same thing, except usually they play a clip and Seth Meyers or somebody gives you a hug. Still, I can't watch it. I think it's dumb and boring. For what it's worth, Blake Lively's husband Ryan Reynolds kind of does the opposite with his stuff, like the Wolverine, Deadpool and Wolverine, where he cuts against these kind of stale, just super lame interview things that are literally just marketing. So reasonable to expect that they're in a hotel room. Parker Posey and Blake Lively have been doing this all day. Who knows how many other interviews they've had to do? I don't know how much time I think probably they have like 5 or 10 minutes. So it's literally just interviewer coming in, trying to get Blake Lively and Parker Posey to talk about the movie a little bit, and then they leave, and then over and over again. So it's repetitive. I've heard actors talk about how boring and fatiguing, and I get it. And I don't think the actors get paid anything more because I think it's just considered part of press. So whatever they got paid for the movie, this is just part of it. They're not getting paid a bonus to sit and, hear the same 5 questions for a day and a half. Anyway, so this interviewer, she's just coming in, she's gonna ask him some questions, and it's gonna go weird. So here we go.
First of all, congrats on your little bump.
Congrats on your little bump.
What about my bump?
You've got 2 nice ones.
Are these? They are kind of bumps, aren't they?
No, not bumps. The lovely lady lumps. Check it out.
Thank you.
So the first thing the interviewer does is says, congratulations on your bump, because Blake Lively is pregnant with her second child. Blake Lively immediately jokingly throws it back at the interviewer and says, congratulations on your your bump, which is kind of a screw you, because clearly she's not pregnant and there's no confusion about that. So it was literally just a screw you, why'd you ask that question kind of a thing. I think Parker Posey, realizing that it was a awkward situation, tried to make a joke about it. Yeah. Weird way to start. Weird tone setter. Do I begrudge Blake Lively for basically saying, screw you, dumb question? No. And the reason is, in the context of this interviewer's clip, it's shitty what Blake Lively did, because basically she can't use it now because it's mean-spirited. But in the context of Blake Lively's experience of it, how many interviewers ahead of her also addressed the pregnancy? So I can see as an interviewer, if you're interview number 30, don't bother asking the dumb, easy question at the beginning, or like, it's nice to address the pregnancy or the weird hair or the weird facial hair or something. Johnny Depp likes to color his teeth when he's a pirate, that kind of thing. But also every other interviewer ahead of you is going to do that too. So yeah. But for the context of this interviewer, literally just trying to get a few sentences from the actors so the interviewer can take it back to her platform and hopefully promote the movie there. It's kind of weird that Blake Lively immediately did that. So anyway, moving on.
Are you like the movie? Are you a Woody Allen fan?
I love most of his movies, and this one was so visually amazing.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Did you guys love wearing those kind of clothes that you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And working in
Everyone wants
digital.
to talk about the clothes, but I wonder if they would ask the men about the clothes.
So the interviewer goes into the first real question, and Parker Posey actually sort of banters a little bit, and so it's friendly. So I think Parker Posey, again, was trying to diffuse the weird tension between Blake Lively and this basically anonymous interviewer. And the interviewer goes, well, did you like the clothes and the costumes in this piece? Which, in context, it's a Woody Allen movie. It's Cafe Society. it's a period piece. So much of going to see a Woody Allen movie is the period aspect of it, the beautiful streets and whatever period it took place in, the New York of it all. The costumes are a big part of it. So this interviewer is actually kind of well researched. She understands that the kind of people that want to watch this kind of movie do care about the costumes. And Blake Lively sort of reactionarily goes, well, they always ask the women about the costumes. Why don't they ask the men about the costumes? Sure, that's a point. That's kind of the same point that Scarlett Johansson makes about every interview she does with the Avengers about the women stuff. But also in the context of the fact that it's a Woody Allen movie, that's part of it. And she would have asked, and she does say, would you have asked a guy the same thing? And the interviewer says, yes, I would have. Because it's a Woody Allen thing. So it's like a weird hill to stand on. Yeah, and then, Blake and Parker Posey banter for a while, but it's like, why is Blake Lively being a dick? Like, is she tired? I don't understand. And the interviewer is so like quiet and reserved that she's just she's not trying to, control the situation, because ostensibly she didn't do anything. Anyway, moving on.
I love Jesse's suits.
That's what I'm saying. His wardrobe was beautiful. Corey's wardrobe was gorgeous. Those high-waisted pants.
He's so great.
I wish men wore high-waisted pants like that still. Or the father with his tank top in bed.
It's so good.
It's just like that. You can feel.
Oh, it's so great. Parker Posey is leaning. She's physically turned her body away from the interviewer, and Blake Lively and Parker Posey are basically just, at this point, talking about costumes and wardrobe to each other, not to the cameras and not to the interviewer. And my initial reaction was, okay, this is a thing that happens. It's annoying, but I wouldn't take it personally. This is just actors doing actor things, and either they don't have a script, or they're bored, or they're burnt out, or they're, somebody told them to behave, and this is them acting out. This is how I interpreted it. They're just being shitty. They're doing their own thing, and you just got to wait it out. And I don't take it personally, because there's no point. With context, and this is a thing I learned in grad school, because I grew up in a family of all guys. I had a mother and then a bunch of brothers, or two brothers and a dad, and so not a lot of estrogen in the house. And so we never came across this. But when I was in grad school, a lot more women in grad school, and so I had to learn about the whole mean girl love it all. Girls will publicly do these kind of things. And so I think this is an example of the mean girl shit, that Parker Posey and Blake Lively are physically boxing out the interviewer as like a screw you, we're going to ruin this interview for you, but be nice and smiley about it by just not interacting. And you'll see as it goes on, they'll continue to talk to each other, not to the cameras, not to the interviewer, not to the other. There's probably at least 10 people in this room. There's not just 3 people in this room. There's camera operators, there's client reps, there's agents and managers and family members. Ryan Reynolds might be back there somewhere. Like, there's a bunch of people in this room, and yet these 2 actors are literally just talking to each other, and they'll glance over to the interviewer, and then they'll continue to talk to each other. It's kind of a screw you. So on the face of it, I don't take it personally. It's just actors being actors and doing goofy shit, and you just got to wait for them to stop and get back on track. But when you don't have time, which I think is what's happening, is, if you're an interviewer and you're doing these things, you only have 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You have a very short amount of time. And so they're literally, because the 2 people know this, they're literally trying to just ruin the time for the person. It's shitty. And, stuff that I don't understand, which is the mean girl stuff, I think applies here. So.
The tablecloth on the light in the Italian restaurant.
I didn't notice that. No.
There's so much warmth of everything.
Also, hilarious editing. I don't know if it's Kjersti Flaa who's editing this, or if there was an editor that edited this, but the reaction shots where Kjersti Flaa just tries and fails to get the thing back. Oh, it's absolutely hilarious. It's cringy. It's gross. So Kjersti Flaa mumbled something to try to get the interview back going. Parker Posey looks at her and then goes back to the conversation, which I think that's the shitty moment. I think that's the real shitty moment where, if you're anything other than the interviewer who's just trying to get the clip, this is where you interject and say something and try to say, hey, pay me the minimum amount of respect. In Kjersti Flaa's situation, I don't think she can, and I don't think there's any point, because all roads lead to I'm not going to get the footage if something escalates. But if you're a director on set, for instance, and they're doing this, this is where you have to say some version of you need to respect me and you need to respect my time. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, and it depends on where on the hierarchy the person you're being disrespected by is doing this to. Because if you're low and they're high, it doesn't matter, and there's no point. Moving on.
Yeah, it's not just the women that have the clothes. I would like at the conversation, but it's like every detail with everybody.
Yeah, it was amazing to look at.
And then white
see
suits.
Yes.
And then you notice in LA, like everybody's in cream colors, and all the men are wearing like white and cream, and then you get to New York, and it's a little bit more browns and moodier. And Susie really told such a story alongside Vittorio, because it is a lot brighter and sunnier in LA, and New York has just a steaminess to it.
And I think even the whole.
Okay, so Blake Lively decides she is going to talk about the movie a little bit and compare New York and LA. So that's movie adjacent. I think that may have been a moment of Blake Lively realizing maybe she's gone too far about being shitty, but I don't know. I wasn't there. And then the interviewer tries to ask another question.
Hollywood glam, it's so glamorous. Can you relate to the things they were saying about Hollywood? It's so easy to get seduced by the fame and the money and the
Oh,
glamour.
you see it all the time. That was one of my favorite things about the movie, were the subtle turns to their own transition into like the ego of showbiz that Kristen has in that scene with Steve Carell, and then with Bobby taking on the persona of a club owner, but still like these are things you do when you're an adult.
Yeah.
So the interviewer asks about the getting seduced by the Hollywood of it all, and Parker Posey decides to actually answer. So Parker Posey's playing ball. She's doing the press thing like you're supposed to. So cool. Yeah. Great. That's, this stuff is really boring, but that's what's supposed to be happening. So.
And you have to work. You have to. You play a part. You play out your life in a way that you find successful. Or so it's a lot about choices. And then they carry this love. And it's just very. It's very grown
neat
up.
to see where they came from, though, and see how authentic these people truly are and what good people they truly are, too.
Yeah.
Because it's what you would see from the outside of the cafe society. You could dismiss each of their characters,
Right.
but to see what a heart and soul each of them have is nice, and it's something that, that's the thing, as far as like relating to it personally that you see. You have these ideas of people that you're fans of, and then you meet them and get to know them as a person, and oftentimes you're such a greater fan of them as a person than you are as the person that people feel like they know, and that's always that's always nice and refreshing when you see that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Blake Lively kind of unprompted adds on to, talking about the movie a little bit more. Also, she brings up, though, that how unlikable people can be until you get to know them, which cuts a little weird against what she's doing, I would say. Maybe that's too many layers, but I thought that was interesting. But yeah, this is an opportunity for the interviewer to jump in and ask, I guess, her last question. I don't know how many minutes this interviewer actually got. I feel like it was a lot more than what we saw, but it wasn't a lot. Anyway.
What do you feel like is the biggest misconceptions about fame and Hollywood in general?
So the interviewer said, what are the big misconceptions about Hollywood and fame in general? And the way Blake answers this, I don't know. It's a weird vibe because Blake Lively is talking about how there's a difference between being famous and the individual, but then she's supposed to be here just promoting her movie, and she's definitely being the individual, and she's being a dick. So it's like you're kind of doing exactly what you're complaining about, which is this is an opportunity for you to, contextualize something. I don't know. I could also read it as like this is her saying, I'm frustrated that we have to do these, which I think she has a really good point if she's saying that these like really stale things, I don't think they're that interesting. I don't think they work very well anymore just because the internet. But why do it to this interviewer, I guess, is the question. I think the answer is Blake Lively specifically doesn't see this interviewer as anybody, so which sucks, but it's a thing.
I think the idea that people think that they know you, I think because of how intrusive media is these days, people care so much more about your personal life than they do your work, and if you aren't open with your personal life, then they just make it up for you and share it for you. So I think the biggest misconception I see often is people feeling like they know someone that they don't, because they know what the media has created of someone. And the disappointing thing is when you meet the people, they're always so much more awesome than they're portrayed to be. I mean, that's normally my experience. And even people that are portrayed to be really great people, they're just a lot more complicated and interesting and nuanced and caring and thoughtful, and that's always nice, to see that your idea of someone isn't always who they actually are.
Yeah.
So Blake Lively is talking about how if you get past all the stuff that you don't know about the celebrity and you actually meet the celebrity, they tend to be more awesome when they already are. The irony is, in a very short interview here, Blake Lively has, at least in this moment, proven to be pretty petty and kind of shitty, and clearly it's affecting this interviewer. Again, I don't necessarily blame anybody, but the fact that this is the structure that the interviewer has to work in, where they do these, just rotating in and out interviewers, which I think is a waste of time. But the fact that Blake Lively is like, oh yeah, once you get to know somebody like me, we're actually more awesome than you think because we've heard so many bad stories. In the case of the way Blake Lively's doing this, kind of the opposite. Kind of you suck. So, takeaways. This is brutal. It's like, again, I understand that, at least in the eyes of these two actors, this interviewer doesn't even necessarily qualify as anything other than just another mouthpiece to get their movie sold. But even then, they're not even being respectful about that, because they just kind of want to talk about their own stuff as a screw you to the interviewer. And so maybe that has to do with the fact that the interviewer immediately addresses the fact that Blake Lively is pregnant. And she is not the first interviewer today to do that to Blake Lively, much less everybody else, because obviously once you look pregnant and you're somebody as famous as Blake Lively, everybody talks about you being pregnant. But that's not on the interviewer. That's on Blake Lively. That's a Blake Lively problem. She could have dressed in a way to hide her pregnancy if she specifically didn't want all the interviewers to grab the low-hanging fruit of, hey, congratulations on your pregnancy. Like, that's, yeah. I feel like Parker Posey was just sort of like trying to appease Blake Lively more than anything else, but I will acknowledge Parker Posey was the one that physically was boxing out the interviewer, which is crazy to think about because there's at least 2 cameras in the room, so they're always facing a camera. And there's a bunch of people behind the scenes that are not part of the interview that are there. So this is not an empty room. This has a bunch of people in it, and these 2 actors are trying to have their own little like screw you mean girl conversation to this other girl whose only mistake was bringing up Blake Lively's pregnancy. It's I don't know. And so how much of it is bad moment on a bad day, and how much of it is actors being goofy, because actors a lot of times are goofy. I don't know. There definitely seems to be some kind of narrative of Blake Lively trying to not be cool during interviews, which I kind of get, but I also, it's like, this is part of the gig. If you're going to be this famous, these dumb, boring interviews are part of it. And her husband is obviously the greatest example of cutting against that, undermining that. And so I think there's better ways to market Hollywood films than doing these sit-down, really stale interviews. But that's the structure we're in right now. And so, I don't know. Did anybody really do something so inappropriate that it's irredeemable? No. Blake Lively was kind of a dick. Parker Posey was kind of a dick. The interviewer probably shouldn't have asked such an easy question at the beginning, like acknowledge the pregnancy at the beginning, but I understand why she did, because it's going to be part of the package. It's going to, like, you can do the interview, and as soon as you start watching the interview, you're going to realize Blake Lively's pregnant, so I think it's fine to acknowledge that. Super weird. I feel bad for the interviewer because she did nothing wrong, and she seemed really well researched. She was asking, even the wardrobe question, I think, is completely in bounds, because Cafe Society was a period piece that takes place in a specific place, and Woody Allen films are about that kind of visual aesthetic. And so I think that was totally within bounds. It was weird. It would suck to be so famous as somebody like Blake Lively to have these videos come out and be a testament against your character. I think that's fully acknowledgeable. I certainly wouldn't want every single second of my day recorded on camera and scrutinized, but she's doing press. She's literally there to just talk about the movie, and the only thing she didn't do for a lot of this video was talk about the movie. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah. In the comments below, was that a correct read? Any ideas for a better way to do this kind of press stuff? Because I think this is just one of those necessary evils, unfortunately, unless you're doing something like Deadpool and Wolverine, where you have an opportunity to get a little bit meta, get a little bit self-aware. The Cafe Society is not that. Yeah, let me know. Like, share, subscribe. Catch you next time.